This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate is the world's biggest coffee lover because we love all the ways you enjoy. Wait. Coffee Mate can't love coffee more than me. I'm a foodie. I went to Kyoto just for a nitro matcha latte. What? Oh, I have to finish the ad. Coffee Mate, for the love of coffee.
Your teen requested a ride, but this time not from you. It's through their Uber teen account. You drive your teenager around, a lot, to their friend Jacob's house, their other friend Jake's house, to James's, to Jaden's, to Jalen's, to...
Mom? This is Jake's house, not Jacob's.
Now with an Uber teen account, your teen can request a ride under your supervision. They'll ride with a highly rated driver, and with live trip tracking, you'll follow along the whole ride to their friends' houses that all sound the same. Add your teen to your Uber account today. See app for details.
Bye, Mom.
I am Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And we're paranormal specialists who live in the most haunted city on earth, Savannah, Georgia. Every day is Halloween in our line of work, so join us as we spin true tales of haunts, murders, and disturbing Savannah history. I'm Madison.
I'm Chris.
And welcome to the most haunted city on earth. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of The Most Haunted City on Earth. My name is Madison Timmons.
I'm Chris Soucy.
And I need glasses.
He does, actually. JT needs glasses for the first time in his 30 years of life.
I went to the doctor because I went to the shooting range the other day, and the person I was shooting with said basically, like, why are you missing so much? Because I never miss, usually like at 50 yards. And I was using iron sights, and I couldn't figure it out. And I used, she said, move to the other eye. And I moved to the other eye, and I hit every single one in my non-dominant. And so I went to the Warby Parker, and I need glasses now, y'all.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It happens.
Dang.
Yeah. So you're going to see
Also
JT.
staring at a computer screen all the time.
That is true.
That's not
Yeah,
a
be
problem.
good for it.
Yeah, hopefully you got the blue light feature in your glasses.
I sure did.
I'm sure you did. I also have
they
it.
made me do it.
Yeah. JT is going to have some cool new glasses coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We'll have to have a fashion
I sure
show.
will next time you see me.
that is true. First, we have a few announcements. So first off, September 26th, we got a big day happening.
Big day, y'all.
Big day.
Big day.
So we have Tiff from Tiff's Ghost Talk on TikTok coming in. We're going to be doing My Favorite Ghost Stories with her. So we're really excited to have her on board for that.
Real fast.
Mm-hmm.
That came about because a Parajunkie tagged us on TikTok, and I saw the tag, and so shout out to that Parajunkie because they were like, "Oh my gosh, you need to do an episode with her," and I was like, "Okay."
And we made it happen. So we're going to be doing
Making
that.
it happen. It's what I do.
And then
Produce.
right afterwards, we're going to be having the women from the Hagland exorcism case on. Ooh. They are giving us their full story. And this is the first time they are telling the story without any kind of guidance or manipulation to the story to fit a certain narrative or anything. So it's going to be very real, very raw and unedited on that one. So it's going to be super cool. I'm very excited to hear their experience because I personally have never met anybody who has been through an exorcism in that way. So I am fascinated beyond belief to hear their story. And then on October 3rd, we are going to be doing our interview with And That's Why We Drink. So they are taking some time out of their very busy schedule in their tour to Zoom in with us. And we're going to be talking about their book. We're going to be talking about their favorite ghost stories as well. So it's definitely an episode you're not going to want to miss. We're going to be doing a live stream as well for the Parajunkies, so they will be able to enjoy that as it's happening. And then October 9th, another big day. So that is the day that our first episode of JT and I spinoff from One to Wicked, which is going to be our true crime spinoff. And we are going to be discussing the Leilani Simons case, which on October 9th, that is the first day of her trial. And that is a huge case here in Savannah that happened recently. So we are going to be doing all of the the nitty gritty details on that. And basically, the concept, we have 5 different categories of reasonings of why we're going to rank these stories from 1 to wicked, and that's going to help formulate our final ranking. And the Parajunkies who are going to who live stream with us will be able to submit their rankings as well. So it's going to be super cool, very interactive on that one.
It's going to be awesome. And I would like to say this is an added show. This isn't going to replace any episodes that we're doing for Most Haunted City on Earth. Most Haunted City on Earth will stay the exact same it is. It'll be full paranormal, all of that. This is just feeding Madison and I's desire for true crime, which is ravenous.
Which honestly, to be honest with y'all, this is what we do in our free time anyway.
Yes.
I just read to JT a bunch of true crime stories, so
Murder.
we figured we might as
Constant.
well film it. So
Amen.
there you go. But 2 more things. We want to thank some new Parajunkies. Again, I'm sure you listened to the last episode. Please send me how to pronounce your name properly. But Kahoka Loa, Nikki, Avalon, Carissa, Emmy, Prachi, Danny, can I go back to sleep now? Daniel, Dally, and Nathan. So thank you guys so much for joining us over on the Parajunkie side. And you guys are going to have lots of fun content coming to you. Then last announcement, we have new merch. I am currently wearing it.
Huzzah.
Huzzah! If y'all didn't know, I love drag queens. So this made my heart sing because it is a plague doctor doing the death drop, holding a rat, and it has the scientific name for the bubonic plague. And this was designed by our very talented Parajunkie Elle. Like I said in the last episode we filmed, this is probably my favorite design that Elle has ever made. So if you are interested in getting this, you can find it over on our website, hauntedcitypodcast.com, and go get you some plague doctor, yassified plague doctor merch.
Indeed.
Now we can get into the quirks of Savannah. We're going to talk about Tree Hole. So Tree Hole basically is this hole on Monterey Square. It is exactly what it sounds like. It is a hole that is in the tree. And basically, I don't know who started this, but
I think it's one of those things that kind of just happens. And you can see it happening all over where people will leave a little item in various places, but it definitely feels like, as you had mentioned, a drastic fey trap. Be mindful.
Well, because people leave items in Tree Hole, and first off, the rule of thumb that is just widely accepted by everybody is you don't touch what's in Tree Hole.
No.
Which is a very fey-like activity, if you ask me, because you don't touch offerings for fey.
Although it seems to me that with Tree Hole, if you bring something, you can trade it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's why it's always different.
Right.
Is if you bring something, you can trade what's in there. But if you're just going, don't touch it, don't take it, unless you have something to
replace it with. I always thought Tree Hole just ended up eating the offerings.
Unfortunately, my introduction to Tree Hole was a TikTok where somebody walked up with an item and did the Indiana Jones switch.
See, JT's the one who told me about it, because didn't you learn about this in high school or something?
Oh, yeah. Tree Hole's been a thing for years.
Forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
decades and decades.
Yeah, and it's all sorts of random things that
little
are
plastic trinkets and stuff.
Yeah, baseball cards, trinkets. I've seen people leave peanuts in it.
Food is probably not a great idea.
The squirrels will take it.
Right.
The squirrels in Savannah are very large, and they love peanuts.
They are thick squirrels.
Yeah.
But you're going to get a Boo Radley out there one day.
Oh, no.
For those To Kill a Mockingbird people who know that Boo Radley would leave gum in the hole of the tree. Never mind.
So there you go.
So there you go.
So I would say that's a good place to start. JT and I always like to walk by Tree Hole and see what's in it.
We sure do.
So yeah, if you're ever in Savannah, go to Monterey Square, which is also a pretty poppin' square historically. You know,
absolutely. Beautiful square.
You've got the Mercer Williams house. You've got the
Mikveh Israel.
the Mikveh Israel synagogue. You've got Forsyth Park, literally one street over. It's a lot going on in that square. And it also, oddly enough, that square at night, no matter how great the weather has been, it always seems a little foggy.
It's a little misty. It is. It is. And, in the center is the Pulaski Monument, under which supposedly the remains of Pulaski.
All right, y'all. It's supposed to be a non.
It's not a ghost.
It's not a ghost.
It's not a ghost.
It's just there.
It's just a body. That's weird, isn't it?
Isn't that weird?
It's even weirder because they pulled the body out of the monument, and now it's under a slab because there was some discrepancy as to whether or not it was, in fact, Pulaski. I didn't say the ghost of Pulaski.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a little misty.
It is a little misty.
A little foggy.
And then if you walk over to Forsyth Park from Monterey Square, you have to pass the Armstrong House.
That's true.
Which has, in my opinion, some of the weirdest statues in Savannah because they are boars that are drooling. They literally have a water feature.
Boars of Savannah.
That's what I always called them because, the boars literally have a water feature where it looks like they are drooling 24/7. And I'm like, so they are
hungry
boars
for your flesh.
Yes, or rabies. You never know.
Rabid, rabid boars. That's terrifying.
That's even worse. Now, another one, since we're talking about statues and whatnot, if you go to, where is that, Chippewa Square, where Oglethorpe's statue is?
Oh, yeah.
First off, didn't put his statue in Oglethorpe Square.
For some reason, Oglethorpe is in Chippewa. And Pulaski isn't in Pulaski Square. He's in Monterey Square. We just mucked up the whole map.
Like Savannahans do.
Yeah.
And if you go to look at Oglethorpe's statue, he has an uncanny resemblance to Captain Morgan.
He really does. It looks like a statue of Captain Morgan. And
which would track for Savannah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, they love drinking so much, they've got a giant statue of Captain Morgan right there.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of fun to think that there was a time when wearing multiple layers of heavy brocade lace and long wig was the manliest thing you could do.
Absolutely. And it's even funnier that he looks like Captain Morgan because Oglethorpe had certain prohibitions that he brought to the city when he was creating it, and one of which was no alcohol. That didn't work out.
He believed that it made men lazy. As a matter of fact, they were all, because he thought it made people lazy. He thought that lawyers made people lazy. He thought that slavery made people lazy. He thought that alcohol made people lazy.
He's right on the third one.
We won't even talk about the Irish, which he also had a prohibition against.
And Catholics.
And Catholics.
Holy crap.
And
really?
lawyers.
Yeah, the lawyers one I always thought was funny.
Yeah.
I agree with him on the alcohol. It does make people lazy.
Well, it didn't stick. So... nonetheless, so moving on, another metal feature that is in Savannah that is quite odd was brought to us by Eni, because Eni sent in some of her quirks that she feels like Savannah has. And Eni said to mention the drainage systems that are on a couple of the buildings in downtown that are supposed to be dolphins.
They are not.
They're not. They are definitely fish.
Someone really needs to talk to the designer and be like, dolphins don't have scales.
Have you ever seen those like ceramic pitchers that are of fish, like that you can like pour the water?
They kind of look like koi.
Yeah,
giant koi, and they serve the purpose of gargoyles, which is something that a lot of people get wrong in the first analysis. A gargoyle, the word is actually derived from gargle, which was a spout, a water spout. The water used to come out of their mouths. But they were just features, and everybody was like, "Oh, well, they're protectors. They're fighting evil." It's like, well, no, there are gutter spouts in many cases. I mean, I think it grew into the more gothic definition that we know, but in originality, it was the gargoyle.
Because anything that gargles is going to keep people away, right?
The weirdest story is apparently it was a sea monster that came up into into Paris and just spat water into the city, and this man, a saint, came and compelled it to leave.
Wow!
And that was the original gargler, the gargoyle. And then they started making these spouts with the face and the water that shoots out of him.
It wasn't actually a sea monster. It was just a sturgeon.
Yes,
that spewed water because it was living in the Seine.
Yeah. That makes sense.
That's what I would imagine. And we actually have sturgeon here as well.
We do indeed.
Which is on the list. So we have sturgeons that are massive that live in the Savannah River.
We sure do.
I had no idea.
They're nuclear powered.
They are nuclear powered, and they look like dinosaurs because they are.
Right. I would assume that at least half of all sea monster sightings are sturgeon. Because these things are barbed and scary and weird. And if you saw one swimming by your boat, you would freak out. You'd be like, it had ridges and it was monstrous and it was gigantic. Because they can get very large.
And for those of you who like animals, our sturgeon is the short-snooted
The short
sturgeon.
Really? Is it?
Yeah.
That's cute.
It is cute. They just got little tiny snoots, you know.
Yep.
We have a bunch of odd animals that live in Savannah. We have the sturgeon. We have dolphins that like to hunt on land.
Yes.
You heard that right.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mutant dolphins.
but they are really cute. There's a photo of them, I think, JT.
Yeah,
They have pink
They're
bellies.
cute until they jump up and eat you.
I mean, the photo
that's
did
true
not
of
make the
bears,
cut.
too.
That's all right. I'm putting it in there. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, well, they kind of have pink bellies. Our dolphins do. So if you're not familiar with our dolphins, they have basically evolved to essentially chase their prey, if you will, during low tide, and they chase them till they run out of water, and they have to fling themselves onto the shore.
Yep.
And to which the
So cool,
dolphins
y'all.
fling themselves.
I've seen it happen.
Yes.
Like when I go fishing, it's so wicked.
And so, to which the dolphins fling themselves onto the shore, and they eat the fish on the land, and then they shimmy their way
back.
and then they do it all over again. So yes, as Trisha just said, land dolphins.
Land dolphins. They don't hang out on the beach, the riverbed, because you might just look like a tasty fish.
Yeah, don't go into the Savannah River in general.
Yeah, no, I would never go into the Savannah River. There is no reason to go into the Savannah River.
There's a quirk. We have a super deadly river.
Yep.
Yeah, it's terrifying. It's a thick, murky, brackish nightmare of monsters like man-eating dolphin.
Yeah.
Snow said, dolphins and I can box any day. Orcas too. These hands are rated E for all groups and dolphins. Were you wronged by a dolphin?
Bring it.
Well, and especially orcas, because you mentioned orcas too. What happened where you...
Where the seafaring mammals are on your bad side.
Please share the details. So supposedly the dolphins have just evolved to do this. My bet is probably because the Savannah River is so murky.
It is very murky.
And they probably are like, I can't see nothing. I can't see these fish. So I'm going to just eat them up there.
Well, what it is that at low tide you get a ton of mud, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so what they do is when all that water is concentrated, so is the bait. And so they're able to chase the bait onto the land while also diving onto the land.
Right.
Eat them sideways.
Right.
That's how they do it. It's remarkable and just unbelievable. It's really, really cool. And one of the coolest things that I've ever actually seen.
Lexi said immediately Google Savannah land dolphins. Alex said, I want land sharks.
No land sharks.
I'm down with land sharks.
Sharks are fish.
Yeah,
Dolphins are mammals.
that is true.
So dolphins have a better chance of lasting a little longer out of the water.
So EO said, noted, no swimming in the river. Yeah, it will kill
Although
you.
if you look into the
It'll
river,
kill you.
you kind of get the notion that you shouldn't, unless it's St. Patrick's Day and you're drunk, which there's always somebody. who's
There's
like-
always somebody.
who's like, I want to swim in the river. I said, please don't do that.
Well, and that's the thing is those same people, they ain't finding you because, you know, it's like.
No, seriously. I was fishing the Savannah River maybe about 2-3 months ago, and I just dropped my bait in, and this was the closest to the bridge that I've actually fished, maybe a mile east. and I dropped my bait in, and I didn't understand necessarily how strong the current was a couple feet down, because it doesn't look like there's a strong current up top.
Powerful.
But when you drop your hook in, all of a sudden it just gets taken like it's. I thought I had a fish.
You thought you had a fish on line. Yeah,
I've
heard that before.
My pole's bending. I'm like, this was fast. Dumb. It was completely not a fish.
It was not a fish. It was just a current.
It was just the vengeful, angry river.
Yep.
Which was already vengeful and angry. And then we started dredging it deeper because we have these cargo ships that are coming into Savannah, which is why the undercurrent's so thick, because it is not like a sandy bottom where you can just walk your way in. It is a whole drop off and mud, first off. So if you do ever get into some portion of the Savannah River, which is not advised, if you do, though, you will not be standing in that river for more than one reason. It is just mud and very squishy mud.
Why are a lot of these quirks like deadly?
Because
Welcome to Savannah.
Yeah. All right, so we have some stone stairs.
oh yeah,
The stone stairs of death.
yes, actually. So the stone stairs of death are technically considered our historic stairs, but if you spend enough time in Savannah, you will learn that everybody calls it that, because if you make one wrong move on those stairs, you are going down, and it very well could break your neck.
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. I had a great uncle who was in the Navy, and I believe it was in the late 60s, fell down the steps and cracked his skull wide open and was reduced to like the mentality of a 6-year-old for the rest of his life.
Wow.
He had to live in an institution for the rest of his life.
Goodness
and it was
gracious.
like just rolling down those stairs.
Wow.
Like,
Wow.
Because the stairs are also jagged, sharp, uneven, different heights.
And
And-
very,
yeah.
very small steps.
Right, very small
Yeah.
steps. It's such a bizarre thing, because most of those steps were made from ballast stone coming off of ships. So they were not measured. They were not like picked for their appropriateness. They're picked for their proximity, how close they are. And so, there are several of the stone stairs of death that are just treacherous. Because even after a period, I think they started putting like cement steps on top of the rocks, but that really didn't change the like danger involved in going up and down those staircases.
Yeah.
So really the advice, if you do want to go down to River Street from Bay Street, first off, take a ramp.
Yep.
Because you can walk on the ramps.
Yes.
You'll basically see, I think it's kind of like every other street has a ramp. And technically those are so that cars and trolleys can get down onto River Street. But you can walk on the side of it.
Yep.
And that is the much easier way to maneuver that, because it is still kind of uneven. So you could...
I was just about to say, cobblestone will kill you if the stairs don't.
Right.
Yeah, I've always marveled at women who wear high heels.
Literally.
Oh my God, I couldn't
Because I
even.
can't do it in sneakers. I'm like,
Lord, you ain't playing. The progression of death in Savannah is this is kind of how you do it. You drink with Captain Morgan in Chippewa Square. You go down, you fall down the stairs, and if you make it past that and your head's all busted, you fall into the river. And that's how they usually go.
And there are many metal staircases which are a little more even keeled than the stone stairs. And there is several hotels that have elevators that'll take you down to River Street level. And then there's one public elevator right next to the Hyatt that you can take down. I always urge people to use the elevators, especially if they're going to be drinking.
Yes.
You don't want to get tipsy and then take your chances on the stone stairs.
And then tip.
Right.
Yeah. Snow said, Savannah possibly killing you is low, but never zero. Kind of like Florida.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
Very true. Don't wear heels on River Street. I can't even tell you. I used to work for a different trolley company, and I would be down on River Street every night practically, and I can't tell you how many girls I've seen absolutely eat it with a wet willy.
Oh, God.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Wet Willie is an establishment that serves alcohol. It's a drink. It's not somebody came up and stuck their pinky in their ear.
But they are delicious and very strong. And if you
Again, the alcohol drink, not the pinky in the ear.
Mm-hmm. And particularly the best way to fall down these stone stairs of death is after drinking a Call Cab from Wet Willie's.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
There you go.
So you get a Call Cab from Wet Willie's, drink it with Captain Morgan in Chippewa Square, head to the stairs, fall down those, go right into the river.
exactly.
How you do it?
Now, the next one I want to bring up is the turtles on Troop Square.
Yep.
But these are not real turtles. These are a metal turtle. So Troop Square has a very interesting for Savannah.
Armillary sphere?
Yeah,
Armillary?
and it's and it's for all the astrological signs.
Right, an armillary sphere.
An armillary would it be?
It's kind of like an astrolabe, but it's an armillary. God, Lord. However you pronounce it, it's a globe that will point out the zodiac.
Yep. And so it's already cool for that if you're an astrology person. But if you look around the base, there are twiddles. And I love going to Troop Square because there is the church there, which we'll get into in a second of why that's a quirk. There's a church there where the little old ladies that attend that church every holiday dress up the turtles on the statue with little outfits.
Yes.
JT,
hats.
I will send you the photo that I have. So this...
Please do.
Yeah, they put little hats on them. So, like for Easter this year, they all had little Sunday church hats, which was super cute. They also put, like Santa hats on them. They had witch hats last year for Halloween.
Little green leprechaun hats. For St. Patrick's Day.
Everything.
They're very cute.
So definitely, if you are going to be in Savannah around a holiday, you need to go. Okay, I'll send it to you after, JT, and you can put it in.
That's fine.
But yeah, so definitely go see the turtles of Troop Square because that is probably my favorite quirk. But on that same square, there is the church that decorates these turtles. But it's not just any church.
Unitarian Universalist Church.
Yes. It's not just any church, though. It is the Jingle Bells Church.
Right.
It is the Jingle Bells Church.
The Jingle Bells Church. Dashing through the snow. Yep.
And
Savannah's known for its snowfall.
Yes. Well, and it was basically Jingle Bells was written in that church, but the writer was not referring to Savannah.
No.
He was
He's from Massachusetts, right?
Yes, he was referring to Boston.
Yeah.
Supposedly. And supposedly he was just longing for home, and so he was missing the snow at Christmas time, but he wrote it in that church, and they still claim it.
And his hometown's a little bitter about it because they definitely challenge whether or not Jingle Bells was written in Savannah because it's all about publication dates and
Yeah.
Because they're like, there's no way it was Savannah. But he was the musical director of that church at the time that Jingle Bells was written.
Fabs said, the stairs 1,000% whooped my ass last time I was in Savannah. 10 out of 10 do not recommend.
They will do that.
That's the most deadly thing in Savannah.
It is by far.
But
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I think that is the most deadly. The river, you can argue the river is the most deadly because
You can also argue
you fall
that
in, it's over.
Savannah traffic
that's true.
has very little concern for your mortality.
Yeah.
But there are other deadly things that you might encounter in Savannah.
But that's not what the show's about.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying deadly objects that you could encounter, including a nuclear bomb at Tybee.
It's true.
Heard it here.
Oh, hold on. Before we get into the nuclear bombs, Fabs added Wet Willies was also involved. I'm telling you.
Yep.
I'm telling you, it's the
It's
recipe.
a combination. It's
It's the recipe for the death. But back to the nuclear bomb. Yes, you heard that correct. Now, Chris, I know you know the actual story a little bit better of how it happened, but essentially they lost a nuclear bomb.
It's a broken arrow situation. They were transporting it. I believe they were flying it to Florida, and they ran into interference and trouble with the plane, and they jettisoned a 15-ton nuclear bomb into the. It's actually in the riverbed just north of Tybee. And it seems like just recently there was some belief that a pair of divers had found it, but it never surfaced. There's never more information about it. But it was this nuclear bomb that was dropped right off the coast of Tybee. And a lot of the conversation was whether or not the plutonium core was engaged, because the belief was when you're transporting it, you don't put the core in. You put a dummy core in, and that would keep it from having a nuclear reaction. But a lot of people believe that they were not operating under regulation, or that regulation was passed after the fact. Either way, there's a nuclear bomb just sitting in the water. And you would think that given the amount of time, the 50 plus years amount of time, 60 plus now, we would have been able to find it, but they've tried. They've done a deep radar sonar. They've done all this stuff.
This is where we dropped it, right?
Yeah, we dropped it right here. You should be able to find a nuclear bomb. Turns out we're not that good at finding our lost nuclear bombs. And I think if you did a deep dive, you would find that there are probably more of these than you're ever going to be comfortable knowing about. Because I want to say one fell in South Carolina and detonated, but it didn't have its nuclear core. It was just the explosion and left a huge crater in South Carolina.
No way.
JT's
I believe that's true.
I'm sure the fishing's good in that.
Oh, yeah.
No, I think it's just a crater. It's on land. There's no water.
It's on land.
Oh.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, and if you drive around Savannah, you'll sometimes see people who have bumper stickers.
Yes, that's right. Tybee Bomb Squad.
Yeah, the Tybee Bomb Squad.
Yeah, the Tybee Bomb Squad. Yep.
Yeah.
That's wild. They dropped one. Do we know where in South Carolina?
I think it's an easy lookup. It's not far. I think we could drive in a day.
Probably. I mean, did they call it Columbia?
Oh my God.
Anyway.
I
don't like Columbia.
I think we're blowing the Parajunkie minds.
Oh yes, there is a
collectively.
nuclear bomb off the coast of Tybee that we've known about.
We've known about.
Like, since I've been here 30 years, and it was old news then. Then they're like, oh yeah. It's like, why aren't we doing something? What happens if it goes off? We all die. It was never like an issue for anyone. No one. They're like, pour another drink. That was which is the Savannah motto for anything is pour another drink. So
my history teacher at Savannah Arts did a whole class on it.
Did he really?
He really did.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks, Mr. Lina.
Oh, Mr. Lyman.
There you go. It does sound very America. Yeah. Well, and that's exactly it. And I mean, honestly, Tybee's the type of place too that you might not always want to get in the water anyways. It's pretty aggressive.
Right.
We've been on a double red flag for like a month.
How the dolphins evolved the way they did? Nuclear waste.
That's exactly, that was my other theory. Well, and that's also why the sturgeon are so big.
Yes, that's right.
They've
been eating radioactive debris for the last 50, 60 years.
Because aren't they considered trash fish? I
believe so. Yeah. They're not scavengers. What is the word? Is it trash? There's a word for it.
There's a word.
Trash fish?
Yeah. Well, I was saying, aren't sturgeon technically trash fish?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Oh.
No?
No, they're
Really?
not. They're not trash fish.
Though.
You said trash fish?
Yeah.
Like a catfish?
Well, like like they eat everything, right?
That doesn't matter. No.
Okay.
They're talking about like gar and catfish when you say trash fish. No, sturgeon's absolutely not a trash fish.
Snow, you still have not explained why you want to throw hands with all dolphins and orcas. Like, you have not given the explanation.
So for those people who are just listening, we do have a Patreon member who is challenging all aquatic, dolphins and orcas, sea mammals, as it were. Snow, how do you feel about beluga whales? Still going to pop them right in the big squishy forehead?
In the sonar, but they'll never see it coming.
So real fast, just wanted to go ahead and read on February 5th, 1958, a B-47 bomber dropped a 7,600-pound nuclear bomb into waters off Tybee Island, Georgia, after colliding with an F-86 fighter jet.
There it was.
Wow.
That's it.
It was an actual collision.
It's a collision.
Woof.
Oh, yeah.
Woof, I say.
Woof.
There's so much sky. How you
There's so much sky.
It seems like hitting another plane takes an immense amount of skill.
Lord.
It does.
Lord.
No, it really does.
So many other places you could be.
So this next one I'm going to tell y'all about. This is a true Savannah knowledge. There is a local man who I would wager is a local favorite of Savannah's, and that is a man named Sir Tybee Fraser. So Sir Tybee is a man who oftentimes you can find sitting in squares. He used to always sit in Johnson Square. I've been seeing him in Chippewa Square, but he will sing you a song about Savannah that he wrote. And
yes, ask him to do it. He loves doing it.
Yes. If you ever see a man, he is usually in some type of like overalls sort of situation, usually wearing a hat of some sorts, and you'll usually hear him singing to himself anyways.
Oh, yeah.
But he is definitely a Savannah classic for sure. And if we can find the recording of Sir Tybee's, song, we will insert it.
Yep.
Perfect.
Here it is.
Now, next one that we're going to talk about is a local business that was owned by a pretty well-known man named Mr. Bradley. Now, Mr. Bradley's family has owned a lock and key shop for how long now?
Over 100 years.
Yep.
It's over 100 years. I want to say that they were in that spot since the late 1800s. The property is owned by the family, and they did not bow to the incredible pressure from so many different businesses, and because it is in prime location. Mm-hmm. That land is probably worth $20 million if a penny, it's worth a lot.
It's off of Wright Square.
Off of Wright Square.
Yeah.
1 block off of Broughton, directly on the corner of State.
Yep, that's State Street.
And Drayton. Incredible location. Has its own parking. Is immense place. The building itself is chock full of Savannah history.
Yes.
Some of the most amazing things from the last 200 years of Savannah history are stockpiled, not only in that building, but they own the building next to it where there's an Italian restaurant, the upper 2 floors chock full of memorabilia of Savannah history, to include like a whole collection of those little mechanical rides that used to sit in front of stores.
Yeah.
So Deanie, Mr. Bradley, who recently passed away, he would put out the call, and he would say that he would pay top dollar for anything that was significant to Savannah history. And he was able to get like all of the bar stools and the bar from the civil rights sit-in.
Wow.
He actually purchased them and had them.
Incredible.
He bought like the broken bell from the main bell tower of the monumental church. He really did love Savannah so much that he wanted to preserve as much of it as possible, which turned the entire property into kind of like a hoarding situation. Mm-hmm. You get that sensation that when you walk in, it's like, I am standing in history. I'm just surrounded by history.
Yeah.
But it is very cool to see.
Shout out to Eni for reminding us about this one in particular, because I didn't think about this, Quirk, when we were planning the episode. But absolutely, the sign, the Bradley sign says, "We sharpen anything but your wits."
Yep.
Let's see, luggage repaired. We fix anything but a broken heart. Mm-hmm. So you gotta love it.
So It's interesting because one member of every generation of the family would take over for Bradley's, and right now I think it's Deanie's nephew is running it right now. But the other members of the family, because the Bradley family is wealthy and very affluential, the other members would go off to be doctors and lawyers and all these things. And so I sat down with Mark Bradley. And we were talking about how his father would run the locksmith, and one of the things that he often did was he cut the rings off of local youth and I guess young adults who, when they played basketball, they would jam their finger, and their finger would swell up, and their rings would start to cut into their fingers. So they would come in, and he would just do it for free, just like pop them off and cut them off. Well, his son Mark became a lawyer, and he was like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Do not do that. You are so liable for so many things the second you do that. But his father was just like,
wow,
just pop them off. And that was the kind of person that whole business was just that kind of business where it was very familial, very local. I got to spend a lot of time in Bradley Lock and Key because I was in the theater. Our theater was half a street away from from Bradley's, but whenever you needed a weird prop, you just go over to Deanie and be like, "Hey, you wouldn't happen to have like an old cash register?" It's like, all right, here. You wouldn't have to have, when you want something, 9 times out of 10 they had it, and we were always locked out of something, and they would come and unlock.
It's so cool.
Anything. It's very cool.
Tons of keys everywhere.
Really cool.
And Milton Bradley was killed by the I-95 killer.
That was Deanie's brother.
Unfortunate quirk that we have.
And he used to work in Bradley's. He used to clean up the space.
Yep.
So we did get the backstory on the dolphin hate. Just real quick. Snow said, I love belugas. So there you go, Chris.
Well, good.
I love all whales, but dolphins? Nope. I punched one when I was a kid at SeaWorld, actually.
So this is a long-standing feud with dolphins.
Continuity. They are... continuation, excuse me. They are so sadistic and just be messing with whales and sharks for no reason. Sharks and whales did nothing to deserve it. Also, dolphins include killer whales / orcas. They are the main offenders.
Wow. Okay.
Although I am digging how orcas are taking down yachts.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating because it does seem like a concerted effort. And the fact that they're targeting yachts, really, it's like, what's going on? What do you know that we don't know?
The orcas really said, eat the rich.
They mean it. They're following through.
Y'all. And here's a picture of Sir Deepy.
That is Sir Deepy with
Sir
the Georgia
Deepy.
Queen behind him.
Yeah.
The Georgia Queen.
So
all right.
There you go.
Good stuff.
Next one, you want to talk, Chris, you want to tell the story about the design of the Asbury Church?
So this one's odd. You'll see on bumper stickers all around town. If you go to the Asbury Church, it's on their main sign. There is a clown picture. Basically, the booster club of the church. This was in the early 90s. And I think they still do this. But in the early 90s, one of the main things that they were doing to help raise revenue was they would make these cute little clown dolls. And the pastor at the time, Billy Hester, had just come to town, and he sat down with me and a friend. We owned a graphic design business. And he was like, I would like a logo that featured these clowns. And so on the spot, at lunch, I kind of scribbled on a piece of paper. I want to say it was a napkin, but it might have just been a piece of paper. I just scribbled this thing out, and I kind of like slid it over to him and said, you want something like this? And he's like, oh, that's great. That's perfect. And so I'm like, great. I'll go and work on it, a drafting table and all that good stuff. When I returned with a finalized product, he had already taken the drawing from the meeting and turned it into their logo, and it is still their logo. Some 30 years later, it's still there, and it's still on everything. They branded everything with it, and I'm like, that was a like ballpoint pen drawing on just a sketchy sketch of it, and he, it's their logo. And he's always quick to like point out that it's me whenever I'm in the same room as him. He's like, oh yeah, he's the guy who came up with the logo. And I'm like, I gotta play it down. It's like, I'm glad you liked it, but it does feel really incomplete to me. But yeah, that's That's how I roll. I turn in rough drafts and people print them.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Chris is he's just littered throughout the entire city of Savannah.
Sounds like a terrifying logo. It kind of is in a way, because they're very much like jingles, actually.
Yeah.
They kind of have that gesture look to them.
Super creepy. So Jay, do you want to pull up some of the submissions that Amy sent us?
Yeah. Well, we got we have the dolphin fish.
We did that one. Yeah.
Gutters.
We already did those gutters?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even show a freaking picture.
Oh.
Sorry, I'm doing like
There it is.
300
Yeah,
things.
they're trying to tell us that that's a dolphin.
Yeah.
Snow, do you feel like punching that? I don't think so. It doesn't look like a dolphin.
That is true.
That's so funny.
Oh, side note, one that just popped into my head. So when President Obama left office, his first meal he wanted to eat after leaving office was in Savannah. He wanted to eat at Mrs. Wilkes.
That's right.
So he flew right on over to Savannah just to eat at Mrs. Wilkes. And if you've never eaten at Mrs. Wilkes, that is a whole quirk in its own.
It really
Their
is.
whole setup.
And
you know.
Mrs. Wilkes was a boarding house, and so they actually serve their food, family style, which is you sit at a table and you don't have a choice of. It's not a menu. They just put food on the table and you pass it around, and it inspires conversation. You have to talk to everybody just to get your food on your plate. And it is a wonderful experience. I definitely promote that to anybody who's looking for a quintessential Savannah experience.
Absolutely.
Eating at Mrs. Wilkes is one of them. But what a lot of people don't know is that Savannians don't necessarily eat at Mrs. Wilkes. They can go around to the back door and knock on the door, and they'll get little takeout bags. So you don't have to, because there's a line. There's always a line that just stretches out into the street.
Massive line.
And so, just be prepared if you want that experience. Come early or be prepared to stand in line.
Yeah, and it's mostly because they're only open during the week, and you have to get there before they open at 11, and it's also cash only.
They are cash only, yeah.
Yeah, so if you do go to Mrs. Wilkes, but it is beautiful. And it's a really, even in the dead of summer when it's super hot, it is very beautiful because you're right on Jones Street.
Yes. Beautiful street, Jones Street. And you get to know the people that you're in line with really well. Because these are generally dedicated people to the concept. You're not dealing with most people who don't want to stand in that line won't stand in the line. So the people who are there are usually pretty good natured about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So we wanted to chock full this episode with a bunch of quirks that you come see yourself. So we also asked Eni because she walks this city almost every single day, and she said a couple that we haven't mentioned. The guy who used to walk around Savannah with religious signs like Satan equals slavery and death.
Yeah,
I think he still does that every once in a while, but
and
he might have changed
I think it said
his sign.
the news is a lie. Was a part of his whole thing, and I once stopped him to talk to him about what he was trying to promote, and all in all, he was not nearly as crazy as I thought he would be, but he was still pretty definitive about Satan's return and the peril that we're all in.
There's also a man that rides his bike.
Oh, the flag guy?
Yes, the flag guy.
Flag guy. How do we
yes.
miss flag guy?
So the flag guy, nobody knows why he does this, as at least I don't know. But he has, those flags that they fly at car dealerships?
Yeah, giant flag.
Yeah,
Giant,
massive American flags.
Think of the biggest flag you can put on a road.
And so he has a pole that he is attached to his bicycle that is flying one of those enormous flags.
You have to imagine his legs are the most muscular thing on earth.
Yes.
Absolutely.
He's fighting wind resistance on what seems to be 20 square miles of fabric. It's just insane.
Yeah. And he will ride that bike all around the historic
I'm
district.
always shocked when I
up
see
to
him.
Durin.
Right. You'll see him coming down Durin, and that's miles and miles away. You're like, how did you get here? Yeah, it's impressive. So there was a time when there were very recognizable and notable homeless people in Savannah that you kind of knew by their quirk, by their strange behavioral patterns. One was a man who used to shake his hands like this, and he'd walk up and down the streets with his hands like this, and you're like not certain what his mental. He was not a. He didn't. He never begged. He never really. He was just always walking the streets with this very long ZZ Top beard and shaking his hands like this. And one day, we were driving downtown, and he was just walking with his hands in his pocket, just like barreling down the street. And I was like, wait, what's he doing? It was so weird. It was so weird to see him out of that. And then my friend was like, I guess it's too cold to be crazy. Like, that's fair. Okay. Yeah. And intriguingly enough, my sister moved into like this apartment building, which is now luxury apartments. But at the time it was like, we're sorry you have to live here apartments. And we were in this building, and the guy lived on my sister's floor. And I was like, oh, he's not homeless.
Wow.
He just walks around. He lives in this building.
There you go.
Yeah.
Another one that she mentioned was she said, there's also this Pharaoh guy who I just randomly see around Savannah. He's always
the Pharaoh.
Yeah.
Yes,
She
in the
said
white
you would
Pharaoh.
know. But
Absolutely.
I didn't know.
You have never seen the Pharaoh?
No.
So the
Where
most
is
common
he?
place that I run into the Pharaoh is the downtown Kroger's.
Yeah.
Oh,
His
my
Shop in the
city
downtown
is weird,
Kroger's.
y'all.
And he wears there's a church in town that is Egyptian based.
Oh.
It is a black church, and it does and all of their service and everything seems to have an Egyptian base. And I want to say that he might be a prominent figure in that church because he's not. There's nothing about him that seems off-putting except he's wearing a stark white, laced in gold pharaoh outfit, like from head to toe, robes.
You get a picture
and
of him.
Thing.
Wow.
I don't have. You didn't have one.
I would be surprised, because it's just one of those things.
Yeah.
You see, and to make matters worse is the first time that I saw him was maybe a day or two after I saw the clown. The clown hasn't been around in a while, but the clown was a fully dressed up clown, like full clown regalia, and he rode a bike around downtown.
That's horrifying.
Horrifying, absolutely horrifying. The first time I saw him, I'm pretty sure I screamed because it didn't make sense. My brain was like, no, thank you, no. Because it's like, oh, he's going to a party at 9:30 at night. No, I don't think so. So the first time I saw him was I was in the playground of the Colonial Park Cemetery giving a tour, and he's riding down that alleyway, and I'm just like, is that a clown? And he's got his little honky clown horn. And he's like, I'm like, no, sir.
No, sir.
They're not allowed.
Goodness gracious.
Ghosts all day long, clowns not so much.
They're also totally separate side note of, but I just thought of another one. There is a dog water fountain in Troop Square as well.
There is a dog water fountain.
Yeah, it's got a human water fountain. If you go a little bit lower, there is a water fountain that is literally there so that your dog doesn't get dehydrated.
Savannah's a dog town.
Yes.
There's no question about it.
Yeah. I think I sometimes wonder why we have all these quirks. And I think it's because we're the size of not as big, and we're not big enough to be a full-blown city, but we're not small enough to be a town. And so I think that there's just enough people where we can have these types of quirks, but then also we're small enough to notice them.
There's and there's no resistance to them. Mm-hmm. There's no one trying to clean the street.
That's it. Yeah.
To a degree.
I would say in the last 20 years, there's been more of a push to kind of tamp down on the weirdness. But when I first moved here, I moved here in the early 90s, and so we were still, like, almost everyone I knew was involved or around Midnight in the Garden Couldn't Heal.
Yeah.
They knew all the people. The guy that they based Luther Driggers, who in the book had flies on strings and had a vial of poison. Everybody knew him, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, he hated the way they portrayed him because he didn't go around like that." It turned out that it was like a Halloween costume that he put flies on his clothes, but John Barron made it seem like he did it every day.
Yeah.
Wow.
But still, it was so normal. It's so normal that Minerva, the hoodoo priestess or root doctor, was regularly seen downtown, but she got so hounded by people who had read the book. And then, of course, when the movie came out, she had to go into hiding because she never wanted to be famous. She wanted to do what she did. And so she had to move to South Carolina because it was just too hard for her to maintain a business downtown. As a matter of fact, almost every hoodoo shop in Savannah had to close because they turned into touristy things. Tourists would go in and be like, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that. It's like, well, no, those are for our practice. This is for our religion. Please don't, take the things we need to do our rituals. But you can't explain that away. And so we lost a lot of culture because of the attention Savannah got. And it's fascinating because there was a time when it was just perfectly legit. I want to say in Factor's Walk, there was a store, and I'll never forget it, had a devil on the door and all this like stuff. And it was specifically painted that way to keep prying eyes away, to keep the Christians who might, wander in there away from it. But, once the craze started where everybody was like, oh, this is such a quirky little place. Oh, it's just like New Orleans. Let's go into this shop. And to their credit, they shut the shops down instead of cashing in. I always thought that was so remarkable that many of these shops chose to close rather than cater to people who did not share their faith or did not respect their faith. And I'm like, that's a big difference. When you got these people who are now, practicing more on a one-on-one directly with the people who need these items to complete the tenets of their faith versus people who are like, oh, look, I got a voodoo keychain. It's like, that's a gree bag. Please put it down.
Literally.
Yep. And then I think to end it out, we should talk about even though she's not a quirk, she was different for the time. We talk about Lady Chablis because she is she's kind of like her, she's like Savannah's mascot,
Patron saint.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Patron saint is Savannah.
Yeah, she. So Lady Chablis, it was a character all on her own. So she was a very open trans woman, which for the time she was living in Savannah, that just was not a thing.
Yeah.
And so she would perform comedy at Club One, which is the gay bar here in Savannah. And still to this day, they have her photo up in the dressing room. They have her quotes that I'm not going to say because this is a family-friendly podcast.
She was very blue humored.
Yeah.
And it's funny because even in the movie, they toned her down so much. She got to play herself.
She demanded
in the
it.
movie, and that tells you everything you need to know about the character.
Amen.
I got to work with her 4 times, and I hung out with her a lot because she was a fixture in downtown Savannah, and she was amazing. She was always amazing. So every time I worked with her, I was a part of a puppet company, and we had a puppet called Formica Dinette Washington, who was a loosely based version of Lady Chablis.
Yeah.
And that always caused a little friction. I mean, a good-hearted friction, but it was still always like, why do we keep booking these things where we go and stand on stage with Lady Chablis, who is a much beloved, and we are puppets.
We are puppets. But yes, Lady Chablis, she has since passed, but she's still very, very honored in Savannah. And if you ever read Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil and or watched the movie, you are familiar with her work.
And she has her own book, Hiding My Candy, which is a great book if you want to read about, because talk about a tumultuous time. We're talking like 70s, 80s drag queen in Savannah, Georgia. It was an immense documentation of how Savannah, and still to this day, Savannah's gay community and gay pride is just phenomenal for being set in the Deep South.
Yeah,
it is this incredible mecca for openness, for tolerance, for all of these things. And I think Lady Chablis was a perfect example of that movement and how the struggle was absolutely real, but overcome to a great degree.
Yeah, we know what it is here. It's true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we love Lady Chablis, and she's a great note to end it on. But hopefully y'all enjoyed this ramblings, the quirks of Savannah, and maybe that'll make you want to come visit Savannah sometime. Yeah, we made it with only minor talk of death.
Minor talk of death. I'm
and not a
impressed,
single
y'all.
ghost.
Not a single ghost.
We
A lot of orca and dolphin
close.
hate,
Got
though.
close.
Got close.
Yeah. A lot of orca and dolphin hate.
Yeah, Lord,
So-
Elle is not gonna like this
Yeah.
episode. Oh, Lord. Yeah,
Ella's going to send a discography.
yes, she
of-
will. All right, that sounds good.
But yeah, thank you all so much for listening to this if you made it all the way through this episode. But if you have any ghost stories, on a different note, if you have any ghost stories that you want to send to us, go ahead and send it to ghostmail@hauntedcitypodcast.com. Also, if you don't already follow us on social media, you can follow us under Haunted City Podcast on pretty much every single platform you can think of. But with that, my name is Madison Timmons,
I'm Chris Soucy.
and stay spooky, y'all.